Welcome to the British Online School podcast, where today we're going to be discussing education and life after football. Today we are joined by Wayne Turner, who started his professional football career in 1978, playing for top teams such as Luton, Lincoln City, Coventry City and Brentford, and playing over 200 games with the majority of them in the top league in the English Pyramid. After his football career, he went on to do other things within the football industry, such as scouting, youth development, assistant manager, and even management. But alongside all of this, he's also ran a successful business and partaken in many other jobs to do in the building industry. Wayne, thank you so much for joining us today.
Brilliant, Dan. Lovely to be here and can't wait for your questions.
Oh, good to hear. So if we can start right at the very beginning then of your career. So over 40 years ago now it was, you became a professional footballer. How did that happen, and how do you think that's different to how it happens today?
Well, first of all, Danny, the main difference is that you play at your local club level for longer periods in my day. So, and obviously, you know, I'm ancient, but there's people more ancient than me. And if you went back a few years before my career started, they played even longer at local park level. But we got signed at Luton. It was called schoolboy forms in them days, and you got signed at the earliest age was 14. So now lads get signed at 8 years old, which is astounding. So, you know, there's scouts on Sunday mornings going around now watching representative games and looking to sign people at 8 years old, which, you know, for me being an ex-coach manager, I think is ridiculous, but the clubs are forced into it because it's the way it is now. So they're frightened if they don't do it with the 8-year-olds. Other clubs will, and then you're too late. But in our era, it was, you had the scouts coming to all your representative games, i.e. the county games, the Luton schools games in my case, and you signed at 14. And I remember I've got a great picture upstairs in my archives of 4 of us getting signed by David Pleat, who at the time was youth team / reserve team coach. And he come to our school, which was an all-boys school. We sat with the headmaster, Mr. Fox, and 4 of us signed on the same day our schoolboy forms. And I was a goody-goody. I had a prefect's jacket on with one of the other lads. And then 2 of the other lads were a bit of a rogues. They had to go out in the corridor, nick 2 prefects' jackets and put them on so we all looked smart together. So it was quite funny that we all looked like prefects in the picture, but only 2 of us was. But we signed at 14, and then it was part-time training twice a week, 2 nights a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and that was it, because you played for your school or your county or your Sunday side at the weekend. But as you got nearer 16, you did play some schoolboy games for Luton, but it didn't really get serious in them days till you signed as an apprentice, which is now called a scholarship, at 16. So we started later, Dan, than they do now.
All right. And so was it always your dream to be a professional footballer, or was it you just happened to be spotted so you went that direction?
Well, there was no football in my blood, in my family. My dad was, as you'll hear later, was a bricklayer and a builder. My dad was one of 13 that was born in and around and just after the Second World War. So they were, you know, grasping onto life, and they did all the bomb damage all around London, their family. That's how they all started. So there was no football in the family. Later on, I realised my uncle played decent non-league and bits and pieces. But when I was 4 or 5 years old, for some reason, I just loved the football. And I played with it as much as I could every day, as far back, and then tried to keep the ball up, and got to 8, 9 years old and keep the ball up 2,000 times. And I remember one day I loved the ball so much, I was keeping it up and I was trying to get past me 2,000, and Mum called me in for dinner. And I'm trying to walk the ball through the back door so I could still get a few more in before we had dinner. So it was just, I don't know, it was something that I was mesmerised by, and just loved the actual football, doing things with it. And then it just progressed from there.
Did you have any heroes then? Because obviously if you loved the game, was it just because it was the first time you kicked the ball, or was it because you saw X player?
Well, yeah, again, I don't want to sound too prehistoric, but the football wasn't flooded on the telly in them days. You know, my biggest memory was Manchester United winning the European Cup in '68. I remember sitting on the settee, 7 years old, and my mum cuddling me because I had a horrendous toothache. And I'm watching Georgie Best win it for Man U in extra time. And I'd have to say the obvious one was Georgie Best at that particular time, but there was a lad who played for Scotland called Jimmy Johnston, who was similar to George, who was a winger and done tricky things. And I watched him. I don't know how I watched him because, like I say, there wasn't hardly anything on the telly regular. You know, you might have to stay up late and watch Match of the Day, but we were young. So you got snippets, Dan. And I'd have to say maybe Georgie Best, but maybe Jimmy Johnson. He did the outside lift with his foot. He dropped his shoulder and lifted the ball over people's feet. And after about a couple of years of mesmerising all the lads that I played against, I then realised there was another way to go past someone just by catching that one night. It must have been one afternoon, one night, one glimpse. But you didn't have too many visuals at that age. Obviously, when I got older, 14, 15, 16, but from 8 to 12, 8 to 14, it was just me against you. It was me against you, me against whoever I was playing against, trying to be the best. And we'll talk about it later, but that's how my career evolved, really, just trying to be better than the person opposite you.
Yeah, that's fascinating. But if we actually talk about your career for a little bit, because when you look at your teams like Coventry and Luton, and maybe not Brentford is so now, but you look at them and they're classed now. I don't want to insult them because obviously they're still big teams, but they're now classed sort of a lower league teams, aren't they? But actually, when you were playing with them, they were in the top division, weren't they? So
out of them three teams, they've sort of swapped. Brentford now are in the Premier League against all odds. They've just arrived last season against all the odds. Coventry, when I played for Coventry, they were with Arsenal, the record-breaking team that had never been out the top flight for so many years. Arsenal obviously still there, but Coventry slipped 5-6 years ago. And Luton weren't as big as Cov, but they had their own history. And we had a 10-year run in the Premier League, in the top division, in Div 1. And in them 10 years, I probably played regular for 4 years, 3-4 years, and then they slipped away. And it is tragic, but they've both come back now. Coventry and Luton played each other last week in the Championship, which is one step down from the Premier. So they've fought their way back, both clubs, and I always keep a close eye on. Obviously, Luton's my main club because I started there as a 14-year-old. But yeah, you're right, Dan. They were big clubs, you know. There's a real story that I'm going to tell you that when I played for Coventry, I was captain, and I fell out with George Curtis, bless him, who died a couple of months ago, and he was joint manager with John Sillett, and John Sillett loved me, George Curtis didn't, and John pulled me on a pre-season trip, and he said, "If I get manager, you're captain. If he gets manager, you're out." And I went, "Oh, right. Well, it'd be nice if you become the main man." Anyway, it was George. I was out. I went to Brentford. 7 months later, they won the FA Cup. They beat Tottenham at Wembley with everybody in that team except me. So it just shows you how you can hit the post. And the year before, I lost in the semi-final for Luton against Everton in extra time. So I had two real near misses to get, you know, in professional football, Dan, you can only win, well, probably three main things: the FA Cup, the league, and the League Cup, and then obviously the Champions League if you're that gifted. But my era, at my time, I could win three things, and I was so close to winning the FA Cup twice. So, but it never happened. But yeah, they were big clubs.
Yeah. So with your time with all those, like you say, huge clubs in the top division, do you have like a particular highlight? Like obviously you've talked about missing out on a few things, which I can't imagine how that must feel. But what sort of do you look back really like daily or weekly and think that's something I'll never forget?
Well, I think I'm the first to admit, when we go back to where I was always trying to be better than the guy opposite, if I give you an analogy, really, I was still in my head, I was still trying to make it as a professional footballer when I finished at 29 with a back injury, because you never, ever, ever, in my head, think you're getting there, because you're on a 2-year contract, you want a 3-year contract. You get a 1-year contract, you want a 2-year contract. You're on £300 a week, you want £350 a week. You're always trying to get the next deal and the next situation. And what I found was that when Luton grew, I was growing with them as a player. And I feel myself very fortunate that I actually played in the top division. I overachieved to play in the top division in my head. And at the time, it was very, very stressful for me to play. But when I look back day to day, I think, wow, Wayne, you played 70, 80 games for Luton in the top division before you went on to Coventry, maybe 100 games. No, it was 100. It was over 100 for Luton. And you were playing at Arsenal, Liverpool, Everton, Man City, all these huge, massive clubs. And you was holding your own. And that's my overriding thoughts that give me pride and give me a warmth. But individual games in that were unbelievable. There were some games at Liverpool, Man City. We stayed up the last kick of the game at Man City and sent Man City down, and Luton stayed up. What a game, what a night, what a build-up. Yeah, Liverpool 3-3. We had 3 different goalkeepers that day. One got injured, and then we swapped them all around, because in them days you only had one sub. Stoke City 4-4. Everton 1-0, beating West Ham 3-2. Beating Newcastle at Newcastle. There were some unbelievable memories, scoring a goal in the FA Cup against Watford after 3 games in a week. Then you'd play on a Saturday in them days. We drew 0-0. Then we played at Watford on the Tuesday, Wednesday, 2-0 down, 2-2. Tossed the coin. We got the replay at home on the following Saturday. My 24th birthday. Actually, on my 24th birthday, I scored the winner, which I wasn't noted for scoring loads of goals. Smashed it in, 1-0. Rest is history. I live off that goal every birthday for the last God knows how many years. So, yeah, it gives me so much pride and so much. But as you get older, you actually enjoy it more, because at the time, you don't enjoy hardly any of it, because the pressure. I remember being sick in the marble halls of Arsenal with nerves, going in. I had to rush into the toilets because it was such a big game. I was going to mark Charlie Nicholas, who was their record signing from Celtic, and I was full of nerves. And I was close to the edge all the time, and it took it out of me, really. But looking back now, you look at it with a lot of pride and a lot of well done, Wayne. It's quite a good one.
Yeah, I can't imagine the intensity of being in those situations. So to hear you actually say it wasn't as that enjoyable as we may assume it is looking inwards, it's quite an interesting take on it. What about players then? What's the best player you've ever come up against?
Come up against is Graham Souness, the guy that's on Sky all the time. I played against some big hitters. Obviously, the children won't know any of them. So I didn't play against Ronaldo. Okay. I'd love to. I've been to his museum in Funchal. Wow, that is something. If the kids could get to Funchal and go and see Ronaldo's museum, that's something. But obviously never played against him, but played against Mario Kempes, who won the World Cup for Argentina. Played against Ozzy Ardiles, who was part of that team for Argentina. Massive players in Argentina. Glenn Hoddle. I'm talking about midfield players, because obviously that's where I was playing. Ray Wilkins. Paul Gascoigne. Played against Gaza when he was 17, 18. He was making his second, third game against Luton for Newcastle. We beat them. Played against Gaza. But the best one out the lot was Graham Souness, because Graham Souness, and there's players, not many of them around today, but he could make your life miserable by stamping on you, doing you, tackling you, being nasty, but always had time on the ball himself. He'd pin you. That means pinning you with your arm, and taking it safe side, which means the ball comes to the side that I'm not. He can get it, he can take it on the outside of his foot, and he could roll you. He could always have time. So for me, Graham Souness, Liverpool, I always knew I was in for a tough game. So that was, as an individual, Brian Robson was brilliant. He played for England. England skipper, played against him. But Souness was the best.
Well, that's a quite a healthy list of names there you've come up against. That's really quite cool. What did Gazza have something special then, even at that young age?
I'd love to say yes, but I never knew I played against him till I dug out when we moved. I've moved a couple of times recently, and we dug out all my memorabilia up in the loft, and I saw my name alongside him. And I swear to God, he was on the team sheet, and I don't remember him playing.
Oh,
so he obviously on the day, because we had the ball that day because we beat them. That's the term in football, Dan. That's you do say sometimes that we were a better team and had the majority of the ball. Where as soon as he would smash me in half and snap me, Gaz obviously was a kid and maybe got missed in the game.
Right.
But when they went another game, when they've got the ball, when he's in charge and he's maturing and getting older and he's running riot, then I'm sure, thankfully, I didn't play in that game. It'd have been bombing. But I wish I could remember, but I only know it on retrospect, looking in the programs and the team sheets, So that was a sad moment when I saw it, but really exciting as well,
Yeah, I guess I bet you play against so many youngsters, you don't know which ones are going to sparkle, do you really? But so after that fascinating football career and all those highlights you've just spoken about, you then moved on to roles outside of playing, such as we've mentioned before, coaching, youth development, scouting and management. How did you find that transition from suddenly being a player to just a member of staff then at clubs? How was that?
Well, for me, luckily, it was a gradual process. As I say, I got a prolapse disc in my later career, and I had to give up professional football and go part-time football because, again, we're talking about the financial side of it. And I remember having to give up. I was playing at Barnet part-time in the end, and I had to give up the football. I was playing at Brentford, and I had to give up the football. And the next day, because I was back, the next day I went and laid a patio. So I've given up football because I've got a degenerative back or a back prolapse disc in my back, and I can't play football, but I had to earn a living. And it was that blatant that the mortgage needed to be paid, the house bills are coming in. Went home to Nikki and I said, Nick, I've finished. I've got 1 week's wages from Brentford. She went, what? I said, that's it. I got 400 quid. That's me lot. That's all we've got. And she said, what are we going to do? I said, well, I know my mate wants a patio laid. I said, I'll go and do that tomorrow. And you'd have cracked up. I had a black BMW, not a new one, by the way. I went and got a tow bar, put a trailer on the back of it and went to work. And that was a shock. But I was still in a position at 29, 30 to play a bit of non-league for Barnet, and the transition of my football money at non-league and then trying to start a business up, of a building business and a decorating business, had to happen overnight. So that was quick, but I then ran it alongside me coaching. I started then to be player coach at Barnet with Barry Fry, who's a big name over here in the lower leagues. He's director of football at Peterborough. And I was bright enough to know that if I ran them alongside each other, the player coach, which invariably would become coach, and my building business, I would have the best of both worlds. So be it 14, 15 hours a day at times. You've got both worlds to try and see which one pans out. And that was my mentality the minute I knew my full-time career was over at the age of 30. So it was a shock, but you haven't got time to think about it, Dan.
Yeah.
You haven't got time to think about it. You have to crack on, and that's what I did.
Oh, brilliant. So what about the coaching side of it and that? Did you find you enjoyed that more than playing, or nothing beat playing?
Nothing beats playing because you have got the banter, the training, yes, the pressure of the game, the pressure of the game for me, especially in them early years when I was with Luton, coming through the ranks and playing in the top level as a youngster. As I got older and played at the top level, it became easier. As I dropped down to Brentford, it became easier. But the coaching, I was always, Danny Bulgara, bless him, was one of my coaches at Luton. And he always described me as a thinking footballer because I didn't have blistering pace. I didn't have enormous power. I didn't have gifted skills, but I had an intelligent football brain. And I was always half a second ahead of the event. So it got me out of a lot of trouble and it stepped me into trouble when I needed trouble. So if I wanted to win a tackle or something, I could see it early. So he called me an intelligent footballer. So I knew he wasn't wrong because I knew I could think the game. So to me, it came natural. The coaching side of it, I took all my badges. Have you heard of Steve McLaren, the ex-England manager?
Yeah, the man with the brolly. I won't call him his official nickname, but yeah.
That's it, the Wally with the brolly, bless him.
That's
well,
it.
me and Steve were the first and second to get our A licenses in the country, which is your highest. Now they've got a UEFA license, which is one up from the A license now, but 20, 30 years ago, it was the full badge, it was called. And then from the full badge, you then transferred it over to the A license. I mean, me and him got it, one of the first to do it, to get it. And I was always very, very into my coaching, always have been. And I had a very successful career. And so I loved it. I got a lot of rewards from my coaching. Yes, playing football's better because it's a thrill and it's your fitness. But also nothing beats your feeling if you've actually organised a strategy of how to beat a team and you win something and you do something and you go somewhere. And I had a fantastic career, 3 years with Barry Fry at Peterborough. I went there and we got up at Wembley before they knocked Wembley over in 2000. We won a playoff on a Friday night. I think Mick come to it actually. My friend Mick, who you know, Mick was there. The family were there, and it was a wonderful occasion going up on the playoffs. So I've had a fair bit of success at coaching, but I'd say playing football was, the best feeling in the world.
So before we go on to move on to talk about your building sort of side of it, I just want to, as you still kept your toe in the game up till quite recently, who do you think's got it better? And putting the money to one side, because I think sometimes that can overshadow current players, but who do you think's got it better? You when you started, or footballers coming through now? And I mean, I know there's loads of things that we can sort of like talk about social media side of it, more in the public eye. But as a whole, do you think you had football in the best time you possibly could, or do you think they have now?
Well, now you've took money out of it. I think that's a big difference. But I also think that the players now are fitter, more knowledgeable about their health and their well-being. And I think the clubs are obviously more tuned into it. But that is money as well, because you need all that money for all that technology and all that understanding. So we talk about it quite a bit, me and the boys, that we had a great life on and off the field. So we were very lucky that we wasn't in a goldfish bowl most of the time when we come off the pitch. So you could have a laugh, you could have a beer, you could have a getaway, and you wasn't hounded for having a good time. Now I think the lads are really restricted. Even the Championship boys, even the Div 2, the Div 1s, I think, the days of going out in your town are limited, and if not non-existent for the big hitters. But I would say we got it just right. We were lucky. We had it where you could really work hard at your football, play hard at your football, enjoy yourself afterwards, and get on with your life. What you didn't have, obviously, and I think also you were closer to reality in our time. It wasn't them and us. There was still us and the fans. There was still us and the media, but it wasn't miles apart. I think if you go to that top 20% now, top 15% now, you know, I've built a couple of houses for some big hitters, some players, and I built one for Jermaine Defoe. And Jermaine's a great lad. But when I was building his house, some of the things that we were talking about and I was watching, he just didn't have an idea of what day-to-day life was. And why would he? He was in Bournemouth's first team at 16 on loan. He was in West Ham's first team at 17. He's still done a fantastic job on ITV the other night for England v Andorra. I thought he was brilliant. And he's played football till he's 39. And he's been in this bubble in that era all the way through. And he doesn't, you know, there's certain things that Jermaine honestly says he ain't got a clue about. And it'll be day-to-day stuff. So I think it's hard for the boys who are the big hitters who have got to do day-to-day life. So for us, I think there was a bit more of a balance that you understood what was coming. And I knew that my life at 30 in my case would have been lovely being 35, but 30 with my back injury, I had to change my life, and it had to go off on a different angle, you know?
Yeah, well, that's a perfect segue into it, actually, because this is something that we don't hear much of, like what happens to a footballer afterwards. So what did happen, and how did you get in the building trade? Because I know it's an interesting story, so I won't say too much and just sort of hand over to you and ask you just to sort of go through where that come from and where it's led you to.
Yes, well, it goes back till I was 10 years old, really. Mum and Dad had 4 boys. 2 of us, my older brother Gary and me, were the older ones. He's 18 months older than me. And then Mum and Dad had a gap of 7 years to Danny and Stevie, 7 and 10 years. So Steve's 10 years younger than me, Danny's 7 years younger than me. But they were away from the situation my dad was in at the time, which was working 2 jobs. He was maintenance man for Eastern Electricity Board, do all their maintenance stuff, bricklaying, fencing, etc., etc. But he also had to do his own work weekends and evenings to keep the money coming in while Mum looked after the 4 of us. So me and Gary, we were the lucky, unlucky ones, whatever you want to call it, that had to go out and work Saturdays, sometimes Sundays, school holidays, and work with our dad. And we'd be labouring and catching bits of this, bits of that, and it was, you just did it. It was, you know, it wasn't week in, week out, but it was when Dad needed us. So we actually got our hands dirty and understood the physical side of life. My dad used to have a saying which doesn't apply now. You know, you don't get nothing sitting on your backside. Well, you do now, because you can make a fortune sitting on your backside. But in my dad's era, you know, you couldn't make a penny sitting on your backside. You had to get up and get at them, and that's what we did. And I was in them years from 10 to 16. Every now and again, school holidays definitely, but every now and again through the week, we'd be working with my dad, and you'd pick up bits, and it was just in your blood. Where my younger brothers have made a living on sitting on their backsides. They have actually gone and into the city and done their bit and done all right. So that period, we did it. And then when I got to 16 and signed for Luton, I thought, well, I can be a footballer. I can be a footballer, you know, I've got another way of my life can be. But I still carried on for 4 years till I hit the first team, the 2 years as a scholar or apprentice, whatever you want to call it. I had 1 year and I signed pro after 1 year. I was lucky, but I signed a 3-year pro on £60 a week. And I went to work for Neville's, a builders, in the summer, got £105 a week. £105 a week being a labourer, working long hours, mind you, rather than me £60 a week being a professional footballer at 18. Yes, I was only a kid in the reserves youth team, but I was still a professional footballer. No, we need a first team, but I was getting nearly double the money being a labourer. So I quickly worked out that if I had 6 weeks on £105, £110 a week, I could go on holiday the last week of me 8 weeks off. So I went to Yarmouth. So for 2 weeks actually, so I must have worked 5 weeks, but I had 2 weeks in Yarmouth. And my then girlfriend got sunstroke in Yarmouth. God's sake. But there you go. So yeah, that's how it started off. And then as I met my wife, Nikki, when she was 17 and I was 22, coming up 22. We got together. I bought my very first house, and straight away, my dad's round there, putting a new fireplace in. We're doing a garden together, doing rockeries in them days. And he built a shed 32 years ago that's still standing. I went past the other day, and it's like a brick. It's like a bomb shelter. It's not going anywhere. The house will be going down before the shed does. So that's how it built up, and then eventually the building took over from the football.
Yeah. So, and is it something, I want to sort of direct this, not that I don't know if many professional footballers will be watching this, but are you glad you were prepared for life after football? Do you feel that gave you, with other people you sort of went through your footballing career with, have you noticed that maybe gave you an edge after the career had finished, or have they gone on to do something different that you think, oh, that would have been interesting to do?
I'm very, very proud of what I've done when I compare myself to my mates. Not that they've struggled enormously, but the biggest thing, Dan, is when you come out of football is that stark realization, what are you going to do? Because it can happen overnight, especially like me with an injury that, you're not filtered into it gently. It bang, you've got to make a decision. And all the lads that I know through that era, they've gone on to do okay. But a lot of them have stayed in football like I did initially, and been coaches, managers. And even then, even when I was coaching and managing and chief scout and European scout and all these different jobs, working for Nike, working for the FA, working for this, working for that, all football related. Luckily, my wife, I just mentioned, Nikki, she had a real desire to build her own house. So it was purely coincidental. Her dad was a bricklayer, purely coincidental. And she started reading this book called The Build It magazine that come out monthly. We're going to an awards night on November the 10th, because the 4 houses I've just last built, we've been put forward through to the last 6 for the Build It magazine awards. So we're going to the Royal Lancaster in London for this dinner. So how ironic's that? We started off all them years ago with Nikki reading the Build It magazine to get into building houses, and she triggered my brain that we could do it. Now we're going to the awards and maybe win an award for our houses that we've built. So going back a stage, I went into football coaching, as a lot of my friends did, but where I was lucky, Dan, I call it blackmailed, that if you haven't got anything else, you have to take the next job in football. And 9 times out of 10, you don't get it, because it's 50, 100 people applying for one job. The money's not great. It's dreadful because it's lower leagues, maybe lower down from the top level. And you have to take it. So the lads have had good careers, but they've worked their socks off and they've bounced from one job to another. And a lot of the time, it's not been their choice. They've had to take it. And that's where I was lucky again, that I was always offered my coaching roles. I never begged for them. And in the end, I went, well, I've had enough of that world of struggling to make ends meet all the time on the football pitch, not financially on the football pitch. It's very difficult. I'm going to jump ship. My house building now is going to be my main earner, and I'll do the football part-time. So I flipped it over again like I did as a player. I flipped it. So I've been very lucky that this string to me bow of building houses has given me the position to be able to pick and choose, and that's been good.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So what's next for you then? So obviously you've had your footballing career, you're building, you're going off to the awards in a month's time. What do you see happening next? Are you finally going to settle and chill, or is there more on the horizon that you still want to achieve in life?
It's amazing because you chase a dream, you chase a goal. And I know you're at that young age now, and I'm envious of you, where you're driving on to where you want to be and what you want to do. But there is an end game. There has to be an end game, because if there's not an end game, what you're here for, and you have to keep an insight of yourself of what you're doing it for, and you have to get the balance right. And I've done some ridiculous things over 30 years since I packed up football full time. You know, say let's say I packed up at 30, now I'm 60. And in that 30 years, I've chased and chased, took gambles financially, chased things, worked ridiculous hours to balance football and building for them 30 years. That's actually, talking to you now, Dan, that's what it's actually been. That 30 years, I've balanced football and building and developing for 30 years. And they've crossed over who's been the most important in that time. They've gone there, come back, gone there, come back. And wow, I've just realized that it's been 30 years of doing that. And now when COVID struck a year ago, or 2 years ago now, but 18 months ago, we just sold out our last house and realized that I could take a deep breath and go, wow, what are we going to do now, Nikki? What are we going to do with the kids? And we just got a new granddaughter, Rosie. What are we going to do? And it's took me 18 months to unwind, finish things off, get everything sorted, and now go, right, what are we going to do? And then I'll go and tear my cartilage. So we can't do anything because I can't walk. So you go, well, there's 4 months. And in that 4 months, you think, right, if I've got a disability, I can't do anything. So you reanalyze it again and go, well, how long have I got that I haven't got a disability? How long have you got to really enjoy yourself? Then a tragic story, a lad who played me at Luton, John Woodward, gets a brain tumour and dies. Mick knows him very well, a friend of ours, as you know. He dies cruelly a year ago after suffering for 18 months. I'll go and do a charity football match 3 weeks ago. I'm assistant manager of Barry Fry. One of the players has a heart attack at half time, crashes over, he's dead for 6 minutes. And you go, oh my God, they defib him. He comes back to life, thank God. And every day you're going, I've just got to enjoy my life. I've now got 15 years of being fit. Hopefully I'm fit as a fiddle at 75, maybe 80. So you've got to enjoy your life. And for me to enjoy my life is to walk, play golf with my wife, Nikki, play golf with my mates, enjoy my granddaughter, enjoy my children, but enjoy my football again, Dan. I've got a chance now to enjoy my football for love, not for money, not for paying the mortgage, chasing a pound note. I now can do it for the love of enjoyment. So I went to watch Hitchin play last night, which is a local team to me. I'm watching Luton's 21s this afternoon play against Bournemouth. And then I'm going to watch a friend of mine. He just took over the job at Dunstable. I'm going to go and watch him tonight. So that's excessive. I'm not doing that every week, but it's just happened the way the game's dropped. I'm going to do all three. And then tomorrow, got my granddaughter. Thursday, we're walking with Nikki, my wife. Friday, got a bit of work to do. Saturday, I'm golfing with my mates over the weekend. We've got a Ryder Cup competition. We're away for the night, Saturday, Sunday. So I've actually trying to enjoy myself. So that's but also keeping my brain occupied because I need to. I'm an active brain, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect answer. Like, just say you're just now enjoying life. I think that's absolutely brilliant answer. So if we can now move on to your education. So like I say, you've had a fantastic footballing career. You've been super successful in the building industry. And now at the age of 60, which is still, I'd say, very young, you're able to sit back and say, I'm just going to enjoy life now. So that's an incredible journey. Do you put any of your success down? And we do ask people to be honest here, even though we're a school. But do you put any of that success down to your school education?
I do and I don't. If I'm brutally honest, I never learned anything at school that has helped me when I left school educationally. In other words, I was average at school. I was average at everything. I always remember, Dan, I don't know if it's going to make you laugh, but I remember my science classes. And you used to have like the brief things at the end, you know, the actual how it all come about, what the actual end game was, what the actual findings were of the experiment or whatever. I used to just write things down, and I remember the teacher now, big red circles. What the hell do you mean, Wayne? and I used to say, I don't know, but I thought I had to put something. The conclusion, that was what I was looking for, the word conclusion. You'd have at the end of the science thing, it'd be, what was the conclusion? And I'd go, the conclusion? What does that mean? So, there's RE, religious education. Oh my God, I thought, what is all this about? Just be nice to each other, just love each other, be kind to each other, and we'll go a long way. Couldn't work that out. History was great. The Second World War I loved, and I did a great piece on that and got a good markings in my history. English, as long as I got my commas in the right place, I was never going to do a lot else, and the full stops, capital letters. Maths, I was good at maths in as much as I could do my mental maths. Algebra, forget it. All the fancy stuff, forget it. All the stuff I didn't need. So I suppose what I took out of school was the basics, Dan, of what I needed. So I spent my whole life, as long as I can remember, from 8 years old to 16, looking out the window, waiting for football. So I was waiting for break time. I was waiting for lunchtime. I was waiting for break time. I was waiting for the end of school to get on the grass and play football. And the only time I didn't look out the window or glance out the window was with my, obviously, sport education. I love my sport. So I was already out there. So I was loving that. Played everything, played cricket, basketball, rugby, swimming, good long distance runner, football I loved. So that was great. But it was when I was doing art and metalwork and woodwork. So there was the clue straight away that even subconsciously, when I was doing them subjects, I was engrossed in it. So you'd have to say I was a hands-on pupil. Rather than academic, I was a hands-on. But also, though, it taught me to work hard. I always worked hard at school to do the best I could, even though I didn't know what the conclusion had. I could have just pied it off, but I wrote something because I thought, well, she deserves something, the teacher. You probably wish I never wrote anything. But, and I remember my art lesson. 2 seconds. 2 seconds, stay there. This is one of my art lessons. This is when I was going for my O-level art. Okay, O-level art. We had to do a subject, and you had to draw within the shape of the subject. Okay, and this is when I was 16, and this got me an O-level, even though I think it was an end days, Dan, it was CSEs, and if you got a CSE grade 1, it was an equivalent of or a GCSE, it was an equivalent of an O-level.
Yeah.
Right. So I was middle of the range, but this is what I painted and drew of my subject.
A football boot, of course.
Football boot, and a guy's taking a penalty, I think, and he misses it, and the Reds are cheering, and you see the guy in the orange who's covering his face. So with that painting, along with a couple of others, I got my O-level.
Yeah, and so we've seen an original Wayne Turner art piece. That's incredible.
That's it. Well, that's in my office with my football memorabilia. I've got some pictures of my football memorabilia, and that was the only one that I painted. But I've done some other stuff. But that's where I come alive in art, in woodwork, metalwork, and when I got outside. So it taught me discipline. It taught me timekeeping. I would never, ever, ever be late because I think it's rude. I thought I'd be in trouble. But helping me when I left school, no, because I was never going to go to uni. Even I remember going to recruitment classes for your career, and I queued up, and there was the queue for all the lads and that going to uni, which wasn't a lot in them days. And there was my queue that was going to manual work. And that's where I was going. If I didn't become a footballer, I'd have been a bricklayer or a plumber or whatever, sooner than I was. So that's how it panned out. But school, I had great memories. One other thing with the school as well, Dan, when I was 12, my mum and dad sent me to an all-boys school.
All right.
So apart from looking out the window at the football, I was looking out the window at the girls.
Were they next door by any chance?
They were next door, and I used to meet my girlfriend, my girlfriend then, my young girlfriend then at 14, 15 in my lunch break. So I had to spend half hour with her before I ran home to have my dinner, which was 2 miles away, because in them days you had your dinner at lunchtime, because my dad come back from work to have his dinner, then run back, all in the space of an hour and 5 minutes. So it was a bit of a lunch break, but that was for 2 years. She was my girlfriend for 2 years. So yeah, I learned a lot about girls in them 2 years, and a lot about football, art, woodwork, and metalwork. That was it.
Brilliant. And I must compliment you on your timekeeping. I've done it. It's about the 10th podcast we've done, and you were the first one to arrive early to a podcast. Everyone else usually arrives on time or a little bit late, and you were 5 minutes early. So I'll give you that one.
There you go.
So looking back,
that's from school, you see.
yeah. So looking back, is there anything you wish you were taught at school that you wasn't, that you think would have made you become successful quicker?
Good question, that is. That's a great question, because I think I did waste time doing certain subjects and certain things that wasn't tailored to me. So I think looking back, you're all thrown into a room like, you know, they are today, but it was you were doing stuff that you got missed, and you maybe, yeah, if they'd have picked up on my woodwork, metalwork, let me do more of that, maybe more into the plumbing, maybe more into the manual labour stuff, the different trades, you know, talk to you. Because I think kids now, definitely at 15, definitely at 14, should have an idea of what they want to do. You know, there's kids now at 22 don't know what they want to do. But, you know, they go to uni and they go from one study to another. But if you're not going to uni, if you're not going to college, which my day wasn't as popular as it is now, but I think, and I spoke to a lad yesterday, a lad called Steve Castle last night. He does the college schemes, Dan, for St Albans, Oakham College, which is a big college. And we were talking last night, and he's got 125 pupils, 16 to 18. It's a football program, but you know what they've done in the last 3 years? They've turned the whole educational side onto manual. So it's all about now, it's not about sports science, it's not about the media, because that was done for so many years, but never led to, you know, how many physios can you have? How many sports scientists can you have? How many things can you have? So he's now curtailed it or changed it into plumbing, plastering, bricklaying, painting and decorating, and he's inundated with students. So it's, in a way, it seems as if it's gone full circle. That in my era, we was, you know, led towards manual stuff, but wasn't done enough at school, I feel. Then it was, everybody was pushed to university for the last 20, 25 years. And now maybe there's a little term where, because we've got a shortage of, my son, Brad, is a bricklayer, and there's such a shortage of bricklayers, plasterers, mechanics, you name it, there's a shortage. So I think that might be the way forward.
And that's what you wish you sort of had then as well. Stop going to
I
science.
I wish that, yeah, I'd have been given more hands-on for what I needed. You know, I'm not being horrible, but I didn't need the conclusion of science. I knew I needed to learn about the church and God, but I'd learned that by the time I was 10 and didn't believe in it. So I was never going to believe in it at 16. So I needed to move on in my life and, you know, to do things that I knew that were good for me. So yeah, I wish I'd had a little bit more of that, but school was good. I've got great memories of school just because I could play football, and we had a great football team and a great rugby team, and it was all about sport really, Dan, if I'm honest.
Well, that's one of my final two questions that I ask everyone then. What is your fondest memory of your days at school? So you would just say all the sports side of it then, would you?
Well, I was very lucky that we went to an all-boys school in that respect, because an all-boys school at that particular time, Chorley Boys School, was admired by everybody. We had the best football teams, the best rugby teams, cricket, and the sports teachers. Forget what I've just said about not putting enough into it. They were amazing. They were the ones who went out of hours, Saturdays, Friday nights, Tuesday night, after school activities. They were brilliant people. My sports teachers were brilliant at Chorley Boys School, because they loved it. They were sportsmen themselves, so they were playing cricket, football, and all themselves with their obviously alongside their teaching hours, and they loved us being what we were, and they got a lot of rewards. You know, if you go back to Chorley Boys School now, Kerry Dixon went to Chorley with me, who went on to play for England and Chelsea. We're the same age group. We grew up together, and we got a picture of me and Kerry arm in arm in the hallway. And you're talking, what's that, 45 years ago, and they've still got our picture up, whether they still have now, but they did have 10 years ago. So there was a proud moment that people were coming through that school, making it decent in football. So my fondest memories at school was my junior and infant schools, football, running around. And then when I got to Chorley, playing all the sports and loving every minute of it. I just loved being a school that was really serious about its sport, and Chorley Boys School was, and that's where I was very lucky by going to an all-boys school.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, nice. So then the final question then, if you could pass on one piece of advice to anyone in school, whether they're just starting out in junior school, infant school, or preparing to leave to go off to college and university, what's one piece of advice you would give after everything you've done and achieved that you would like to say to them?
I think the easy thing to say is to work hard. You know, it's such an easy thing to say. Just work hard, concentrate, be conscientious, be on time, show that you want to be there, listen and communicate. But I think saying the first bit, which is work hard, I think it's a mental thing. I think it's something you've got to build up in yourself, that why do you want to work hard? Why do you want to do this work? Why do you want to improve? And I know it's hard when you're young, but if you've got an interest, you must have an interest, even if it's playing on your games, online, whatever it is. If you've got an interest, excel at that interest, but not to the expense of other things. So in my case, I love my football, but I still had another interest in my hands. I still wanted to do my art, my work, my woodwork, my metalwork. So don't close yourself off to just one thing, because you don't know if that one thing's going to give you happiness in a year's time, in 4 years' time, in 5 minutes. So try and have another thing that keeps you motivated. And if you haven't, discuss it. Discuss it with your parents, discuss it with your teachers, discuss it that, you know, I'm not sure what I want to do, but I want to do something. Because if you just go brain dead and don't do anything and become lethargic and just become lazy-minded, you know, what my dad said, you won't get anywhere sitting on your bum. Well, that's maybe been a line now to you won't get anywhere with a dead brain. If your brain's just not functioning and can't be bothered, what do you think's going to happen? Who's going to come and see you, and who's going to come and sort you out, and who's going to come and engage with you, interact with you? So I think you've got to have a goal. You've got to have a vision. It doesn't have to be a 10-year vision. It could be a 10-minute vision. You've got to be able to see what you want to do tomorrow. Yeah. And go for it, and get up, get at it and do it, and have a goal. So to round all that up, work hard, but to simplify that's too simplistic. To say just work hard is too easy, because you don't do it. You just say, I will work hard, but I don't. You've got to be interested in something. You've got to have a goal, and you've got to go for that goal. Short term, then go for the next one and move on. So have a focus, have a goal. That's what I would say to the kids.
Brilliant. And are you on any sort of social media platforms that, if people have been enjoying our conversation, would want to follow your story? Can they follow you anywhere?
Not really. I did a podcast when you said about the other earlier on about your best team. Marvin Johnson used to play for Luton. He's doing my best 11 with a guy. He's in America. The guy does it with Andy. He's in Australia, Luton Town supporter. So the three of us get together, and now he's got other players involved. So I did that podcast, which was great. I've done a couple of messages for other schools and other organisations.
You might have to create a new social media page where people can follow your enjoying your life now. So
God, don't do that.
Before I let you go, though, I've got to ask, because you just said about, can we see your football memorabilia wall?
Oh, right. Yeah, I'll have to take you there. Yeah, it's very diluted now, because when I lived in the big house, I'm talking big houses now down the road, which I sold, I had a huge games room with the snooker table, the bar, the darts, you name it, I had it. It was big time Charlie. And I had these huge walls. But now I've only got the smaller office. So I'll show you what I've filtered out and brought back to life. If I start at the start of my career, which is here. So this is my wall where that's me when I was 7 years old, winning the Cubs. Funny, winning the Cubs, and I was a captain. That's me mum just walking past. That's me younger brother just walking past, which is bonkers. And then Luton schools. That was with Luton schools when we got to the semi-finals and we won the South East England Cup. That was playing at Luton Town when that's me in the middle. Look, with a happy face. 1975 on Kenilworth Road. That's when I first signed for Luton at 14. That's me, Coventry, just before I left, before they went and won the FA Cup. That's me, captain of Coventry, with my nephew, Wayne, who's now 40. Same boy at Brentford. Me at Brentford, manager of Stevenage with David Pleat. Manager of Stevenage there with little Bradley, my son, as mascot. We were playing in the FA Trophy final. Then you go round with my wife, Nikki, when we won the playoff final, when I was assistant manager at Peterborough. Me and Baz, with my brother Danny, testimonial match for him, Barry Fry. Me and the kids at Peterborough. Me goal against Watford. There it goes. That's where it started. That's when it finishes up. Look at the crowd down where their arms are not up there. And then when you get here, their arms are up. That's me getting adulation coming off after that game. Nearly there, won't bore you much longer. That's against Tottenham at White Hart Lane. That's me looking rather gorgeous in the good old days. That's me scoring against Cambridge. Me looking lovely again. Me scoring against Watford. Overhead kick against Brighton. Against West Ham. Luton. So that's a little snippet of some of my photos.
Brilliant. That's fantastic.
And that's when we first started building the houses on my second phase. That was my office. You wouldn't believe it turned into a multi-million business. That was my first office. So there you go. Let insight into in my life.
No, I think that's a fantastic note to end the podcast on as well. Thank you so much for your time. It was meant to be a 20-minute podcast, but you're a fascinating person to talk to, and some great stories.
Oh God, we overran. Sorry, that I'm always guilty of overrunning. So sorry.
No, it's brilliant. No, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. So thank you very much, Wayne.
No worries, Dan.
Thank you for watching our podcast today. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to make sure you never miss out on the new ones we post every Monday and Wednesday. If you are interested in enrolling yourself or someone else into the British Online School, be sure to visit our website, britishonlineschool.co.uk, or you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and send us a direct message there as well. Just use the handle @BritOnlineSchool, spelled SCH, and you can find all our links below. Have a fantastic day, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.